Looks like James Bond.
He really does, dude. I bet he carries one of those guns that you screw together.
Yes.
Those are like the coolest guns they make,
gonna be
man.
great.
It's so dangerous. What if that is an undercover cop?
Oh, come
Or
on.
better yet, what if it's a real thing? He charges so much money we can't afford it. He gets pissed off, kills us.
He's not gonna kill all three of us. Hold on.
That's a thing?
Could that happen?
Gotta let him in now.
Okay, how's my hair?
What do you mean? How's your hair?
It doesn't matter. Okay, let's do this.
Welcome to the Film Fix. I'm Jeff Marker here, as always, with Jonathan W. Hickman. And here we are in beautiful Atlantic Station on a nice evening, and we just got done taking a look at Horrible Bosses. So Horrible Bosses is a project that's been reportedly kicked around Hollywood for several years, and it's not hard to see why, because it's not a terribly original concept. You've basically got Strangers on a Train, the classic Hitchcock movie, mixed with 9 to 5. You have three characters played by Jason Sudeikis, Charlie Day, and Jason Bateman, and they each have a horrible boss. And the bosses are played by Kevin Spacey, Colin Farrell, and Jennifer Aniston. And it's worth mentioning that, you know, you've seen Spacey like this, being a real scoundrel and just a terrible, terrible boss. But both Farrell and Aniston play characters you've never seen them play before.
I don't care how bad our bosses are. We're not murderers.
Oh, Dale, you know that I like to fool around. This is bad. Bad, bad, bad.
You know what? That's crossing the line.
Just like 9 to 5, they decide that, you know, the world would be a better place without the horrible boss. And so the Strangers on the Train twist comes in that there's not just one boss, there's three, and they're each going to kill each other's bosses.
I'm in. Okay, so let's do this.
We gotta hire a professional.
I'm gonna be your murder consultant.
Word.
And so this is a Seth Gordon directed movie, and Seth Gordon's done you know, several TV episodes here and there, but what he's most known for is a documentary in 2007 called King of Kong, which is a great documentary. It won a lot of awards and nominations, and so 2007, everybody thought, okay, the Seth Gordon guy is really going to be somebody. Well, his next major release is Four Christmases, which was pretty bad, you know, gives Formulaic a bad name, essentially. And so, to me, this is Seth Gordon, finally in 2011, sort of showing everybody that, yeah, this is the potential this guy has to make some really hilarious Hollywood comedy.
Now, walking out of this, you were able to tell me what kind of movie this was. It's an absurdist comedy.
Sure.
And you know, we've seen The Hangover, we've seen The Hangover Part 2, and The Hangover Part 2 was just completely, utterly, wildly over the top. And you have this movie, which is over the top, but still retains a little bit of credibility here and there, mainly because it's just got a great cast. But credibility is not what they're going for at all.
No, I mean, The Hangover basically takes a very common situation. Unfortunately, a bachelor party sort of gets out of hand, but they start with a really dark, absurd scenario to begin with. They're going to kill their bosses. Well, does that sound like a comedy? Yeah, it sounds like a dark comedy because you never for once believe that they're actually going to kill their bosses.
Hang on a second. You guys already went ahead and found someone and was coming here?
Big time.
Not we. Dale.
I
all by
found a
himself.
guy. Yeah, it was pretty easy. As easy as buying a used futon.
You found a hitman online?
Yeah.
And so they start with that scenario, and the plot just doesn't pan out like you expect it to.
No, it doesn't, and it is clever in places. They use this this device in a way that I think works. I mean, and particularly when they start crossing up, you know, who's going to kill who's boss, how is it going to be done, all of that kind of stuff. But I think that early on I kind of thought maybe this would get really dark, like that old Peter Berg film, Very Bad Things. Ooh. You know, that movie got just so way off the rails, and
Then that movie lost me at a certain point.
Yeah.
When the big event in that happens, I didn't care at all. I thought they went way too far.
Well,
I couldn't find this
mean-spirited.
funny.
Yeah.
You know, this doesn't feel like that though.
No, what it feels like is it feels like a group of comic actors. You know, Jason Bateman is sort of the non-comedian in the bunch. I think Charlie Day, with Always Funny in Philadelphia, is probably has a comic background.
You wouldn't consider Jason Bateman a comedian?
Well, I would consider him an actor first and a
fair
comedian second, and he just happens to have good comic timing.
You know that last month you made me work so late I missed saying goodbye to my gam?
I'm sorry, what?
My grandmother. I told you that I needed to see her because she was very, very sick. You said if I left early, I'd get fired. And she died before I made it to the hospital.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I had no idea that you called your grandmother.
I'd say Charlie Day is more of a comedian. I would say that Jason Bateman's an actor first, and he'd probably want to be known that way. But of course, I get away. I think this is satirical stuff.
Sure,
You know?
absolutely.
And right now, the economy being as bad as it is, last week we had the feel-good view of making jokes about the economy. This week we have the absurdist view. We also have a little bit of raunchy, I mean, there's a lot of F words in this movie, a lot of sexual innuendo and actual sexual nonsense, but it doesn't get as over the top as The Hangover Part 2. I mean, just
Well, and really-
crazy stuff in that movie.
The language and all of that is maybe gratuitous, but the fact is most of it's really funny. And
Oh,
if you
yeah.
can write profanity in a really funny way, you can say whatever the heck you want.
Oh yeah, we gotta trim some of the fat around here.
Trim the. What do you mean by trim the fat?
I want you to fire the fat people.
What?
They're lazy and they're slow and they make me sad to look at.
You got to talk about Jason Sudeikis here. He had Hall Pass, and in this one he's sort of the lady killer among the group, and he does all right. And his comic timing really works. He's kind of got a Chevy Chase thing going.
Yeah.
You know.
They work very well together, you know, and it's funny, you know, this isn't giving anything away about the story, but during the closing credits, they have some outtakes, and it's not surprising at all that they were laughing all the time on the set and having so much fun, because you can really tell that these three had a great time making
These
it.
guys are naturally funny people, probably, you know, and I you know, there are probably comedians that in real life are really bitter, awful people to be around, I'm sure, okay? Bill Hicks probably was not a very nice guy to be around. But, you know, if you look at these guys, I think they're probably very likable, and they have a good chemistry, and it really works. It's a buddy picture, after all.
Yeah.
You know, talk about Kevin Spacey. I mean, he is. Yeah, we've seen him in Swimming with Sharks, which is sort of what you were talking about. Kevin Spacey in the 1990s movie. I don't know what year it was.
Yeah.
Swimming with Sharks. He played a horrible boss in that movie, and he always plays sort of a snarky, I'm the smartest guy in the room guy, and yet in this he takes that to a whole nother level.
Sorry. Sorry you didn't get to say bye-bye to Cam Cam. Really, I really am. But I needed you to stay here and work late because you were an invaluable member of this operation, and I need you in the position that you're currently in.
And early on, he's very good. I thought it was funny. I thought I wanted to kill him.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why it feels so dark at the beginning. Spacey is just such a terrible guy. Farrell is more of a caricature, really.
You know,
and it's fun to watch him play
like
that
the
caricature.
Tropic Thunder Tom Cruise Farrell is what we're seeing
That's
here.
very good.
And you know, he's got this bad comb over. He's obviously they've shaved his head to make it look like he's Donald Sutherland's son in this, and he doesn't even go to his own dad's funeral.
Yeah.
And you've seen this in the trailers, but every scene he's in, you want to see more of Farrell. And you know, he's not in the movie a whole lot, but he definitely has given us a character to remember here, much like the character from Tropic Thunder. And you know, there's talk of a spin-off of that character from Tropic Thunder that Tom Cruise played, the producer, and I can totally see it. I don't know if I could take a whole movie of that character, nor could I
remains to
take
be
a whole
seen.
movie of the Farrell character, but it's funny stuff.
Well, and the other boss is Jennifer Aniston, who, you know, we usually like in her roles, but here she's incredibly sexy, and that's part of, that's not a sexist comment, that's part of who the character is. She is a sex addict, and she's a really, they call her a crazy rhymes with witch.
I'll say this.
Boy, she earns that title.
I'll say this. I think that she's so much of a nymphomania in this nymphomaniac in this film that it's not sexy. And I think that's a credit to Jennifer Aniston. You know, so many actresses are afraid to look very unflattering in movies, and Jennifer Aniston, to her credit, is so oversexed in this movie that it is unflattering.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. I think that she does a good job. But also, they've got Jamie Foxx in this film, and he plays a character that we cannot. He plays Jones. That's I can't say the first part
you
of
can't say his character name.
Jones
on
yes.
TV.
Yes.
Even if you pull it off perfectly, if you crackers got motives, the po-po,
That means police.
will still pin it to you.
We all have clear motives for killing our bosses, so this is not going to work. This is garbage.
Why don't you kill each other's bosses?
That's actually a good idea.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah, like Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, right?
I didn't see that. They do that
The
now?
Danny DeVito movie. It's a funny one.
Yeah,
What?
that famous Alfred Hitchcock Danny DeVito movie.
a good
That's the one. He's. Come on.
And he's got this wicked tattoos, and his whole head is tattooed, and he has some really neat scenes.
He has some great lines.
It's an
and
underplayed performance.
the only little bit of social commentary comes through his character.
Totally.
And it's really funny. It's really satirical. Yeah.
He's like the
great stuff.
indirect voice of reason in the film. And you know, the movie never pretends to be anything that anything more than it is.
Exactly.
It's funny. It doesn't totally hang together. It gets a little off the rails in the end, but we expect that. And for me, it worked. I mean, did you get your fix?
I absolutely got my
Bosses?
fix. Look, I think we laughed more at this than we've laughed at anything this year.
Totally.
Maybe
Yeah.
combined. You know, I mean,
Well, I
there's
think
just
it's
a lot
consistent.
of good jokes.
It was
Exactly.
a consistent laugh, and I too got my fix from Horrible Bosses. So that's 2 fixes.
Everybody fantasies about killing their boss. Maybe not everybody,
Well, not
but if
everyone.
you've had a horrible boss, you know, you kind of have that. The same way, you know, it reminds me of The Last Supper, that sort of liberals
Yeah.
fantasy from the
Now
the
that's
90s.
a good one to recommend.
Yeah.
They're a group of very attractive young people who live in this little house communally, and they invite these awful people and they're great actors. I mean, they play them to their house, and they feed them poison, and
Right.
they die. So, you know, yeah, I can see that connection. There are so many movies that have played with this, and a lot of them, like I'd say The Last Supper did this a little better.
Well, it did a little bit more. It was actually a bit darker.
Yeah,
I
the
think. They went for
consequences
laughs fewer
You know,
times than this movie.
This is tied up in a nice little bow, which may in fact be one of the failings of the film. It
I
doesn't
didn't mind
try
it
to
at
be
all.
heavy.
I thought it was great, and it's a great summer comedy.
Yes.
It's sort of a modern screwball comedy. You're never going to take this seriously. You're just going to laugh at it the whole time.
I agree with that. Well, you've been watching yet another episode of The Film Fix this week. As always, I'm Jonathan W. Hickman, and I'm joined by Jeff Marker. I'll actually say your name this week.
Thank you.
And you can always join us on the web by going to dailyfilmfix.com, where you can feed your movie addiction.